start off with Captain America, courtesy of Morgan Roberts from Sega. Morgan, thanks a lot for joining us.
Sean, thanks for having me.
All right, excellent. So you've got the game going right here. We'll go ahead and get it started and tell everybody what Captain America is all about.
Sure. Well, we wanted to show you something new. We were here just before E3, and we kind of started the story out with Cap skydiving into Hydra's castle. Actually used to belong to Baron Zemo, so we tell a little bit of that backstory there. Why does Cap need to get in here? There's these crazy experiments. So he's actually made his way into the castle, gotten down into the laboratories. This is the first time he started exploring it, and you start seeing some of the crazy experiments that Arnim Zola has been performing by direction of Red Skull. Hydra, for those that don't know, is sort of like the deep science organization that the Nazis have put in place to create weapons that really don't belong in World War II. So Cap needs to stop them before they get, or turn the tide of the war, really.
All right, excellent. Now, yeah, it looks like something bad has happened here.
Yeah, you'll see there's these containment units, and Arnim Zola has been doing biological experiments trying to create essentially the Nazis' own version of a super soldier. And so Cap sees what's going on here. He's down in here trying to rescue some of the invaders, which are based on the Howling Commandos, his team of guys, Bucky, Dugan, Fallsworth. And so here's one of the experiments that you see right now. These guys we call screamers. They're essentially psychic soldiers that Arnim Zola's created that sort of go haywire. They don't really follow instructions. They don't really work for Hydra. They're killing everybody in the facility, and now Cap is first facing them. So you see he's got a psychic barrier around him. Shield is useless, basically. If you get too close, he'll throw you away. So Cap's got to deflect incoming shots to weaken the guy and then get in there past his shield, his bubble shield.
Okay.
So Cap's shield actually is an offensive weapon, but it's also a defensive weapon. It can be used both to block incoming melee attacks, but then ranged attacks too. And as you can see, Cap's pretty brutal in our game. So back to the story, he's essentially trying to find Dugan, one of the invaders, and he's worried that Hydra will turn him into one of these crazy screamers or some other biological experiment. What we're seeing right there is a Crippling Strike. As you build up focus, we call it, with Cap's abilities, you can start unleashing single strike kills on the enemies.
Now, can you give us a sense of where, like how far into the game this is and how this compares to some of the other enemies and environments that
Sure.
Cap's going to encounter?
Yeah, this is about halfway into the game.
Okay.
So the start of it, you're outside of the castle and you're fighting more traditional style soldiers, guys with shotguns and rifles and electrified batons and whatnot, sort of your standard grunt soldiers. It's not until you get into the labs you start seeing the crazy sort of abominations that Arnim Zola's been up to. These screamers are some of the first ones you find. There's a couple other ones that you'll run into a little bit later here. Eventually you'll make your way outside the castle to try to rescue Fallsworth from some of the bosses. We've got Baron Strucker in here, who you would have already fought at this point, but then Madam Hydra is the next lieutenant you're trying to get to. Make your way all the way to Arnim Zola and Red Skull, who are actually being defended by Iron Cross, which is another, all sort of super villains that were back in World War II era.
And how frequent are we going to encounter that sort of mini-game?
Sure, what you saw right there we call a cipher box. It's based on like the Enigma machines of World War II, and Cap with his sort of an analytical mind can determine the common variable between both. So we throw those in there along with some hotwire mini games just to change things up over time, so you get a little bit of exploration as well as the combat. And something else you're not seeing in this demo is platforming, the agility to navigate the environment.
All right, so we've got some audience questions here from the folks who are in the chat right now. Just a reminder, anybody can join the chat. All you have to do is click the button right next to the video player. Thribs is wondering, when does this take place in respect to the movie?
So the movie is more of an origin story. It's about Steve Rogers sort of as a young kid wanting to join the Army, not being fit for the Army, and then going through the Super Soldier program, or Project Rebirth it's called. So all of that has happened already in our timeline. We maintain continuity, but essentially Captain America has already become the hero that he is, and he's already leading the invaders based on the Howling Commandos, like I mentioned, into one of Red Skull's experimental laboratories that you're seeing here. And eventually then, of course, he faces off with Red Skull in the movie. So it's basically a mission in between the beginning and end of the movie.
Can you give us a sense of, how this game controls and, relative to some other action games out there?
Sure, yeah, it's more of a contextual combat system, which is, I think, becoming more popular right now, sort of a deviation from the classic combo, which is, XXY or XXXY. This is more about assessing the situation. If there's someone coming behind you, maybe you want to counter them. If there's someone coming in front of you, maybe you want to block or defend against them, or maybe mobility around them, and then come out with a grab. So you've got all these moves that you can perform at any time.
And That is a sweet-looking mustache on Dugan right there.
So yeah, it's cool. One of the other things we haven't shown you, I mean, there's the melee combat system, but there's also a lot of shield activity in there too. So Cap can block the shield, incoming fire, but he can also use it to target multiple guys, quick throws, ricochet it off individuals, and reflect incoming ranged attacks.
I'll have my little friend to keep me company.
No, I imagine one of the trickiest parts about developing a game like this is, balancing the, the sort of fan base between the hardcore Captain America fans and the ones who've just never read a single comic in their life. What are you guys doing? How are you taking on that challenge?
Well, I mean, one of the things we wanted to do is definitely get Chris Evans, who's the actor in the movie. I think once he comes out and that movie comes out, everybody's going to recognize him as Captain America. So that sort of appeals to your more general player who just wants to experience like another mission after they watch the movie, like let me see a little bit more about this. For those people who are a little more hardcore, we actually have a lot of backstory based on the castle. It's run by Baron Zemo, who's a classic enemy in the comics. Also, Arnim Zola has these film reels, so there's a bunch of backstory that you can get through collectibles and such in the environment to get more of the lore that's going on here. What you're seeing right there is weaponized. So kind of like the Crippling Strike I was talking about earlier, where you can take a guy out in a single shot, you can also save up your focus to grab an enemy, turn them around, and then use their ranged weapon on other enemies.
Let's see. Sipper19 has a slightly ambitious question of wondering, are there any Avengers Easter eggs in this game?
Let's see, Avengers Easter eggs. Not really. We wanted to kind of focus on Cap by himself. We had toyed with the idea of maybe like showing all of this as almost as a flashback and then coming into modern day and having him explain this whole story to the rest of the Avengers, and we were like, that's too ambitious. Let's just keep it focused on Cap for now. We got to save some stuff for the sequel.
Right, that is true.
Madam Hydra, who's taken Fallsworth outside of the facility, and there's a couple of enemies he's got to finish off before he can get back up to the upper levels. So here you're seeing some of the shield. You can ricochet that off multiple guys. You can also weaponize this guy, turn his plasma rifle, we call it, back on the enemies.
I like the karate chop to the neck of the heavily armored heavy there.
Right. Cool.
All right, let's see. Thribs is wondering, why are they called Hydra?
Hydra?
Yeah.
It's just what it's been in the comics forever.
You guys don't want to change the canon?
No, we didn't want to change the canon. We want to maintain continuity between the film and the comics, obviously. I mean, their classic line is you kill one of us and two rise up, right? Sort of like the mythological creature.
So close yet so far, your captain. Schnell, schnell!
I don't have a shot. Get her, Cap.
Consider it done.
So it's one of the examples of some of the technology that doesn't belong in World War II that Hydra is working on.
A totally sweet helicopter.
Yes. So that you'll find that once you get back into the laboratories, you rescue Fallsworth, get a little bit further down, there's a whole sort of weapons manufacturing plant. There's a thermal plant that powers everything. You'll find out where they're manufacturing those helicopters. So it's quite involved. Like although you're contained within this castle the whole time, there's lots of different environments and levels to it.
Ouch.
Go get her. I got a score to settle with that cannon that shot us down.
Exotic Animal is wondering about game length Obviously, that's something that varies from skill level to skill level.
Exactly. It depends on if you want to do a lot of the collectibles. Like I mentioned before, you've got the Zemo diaries. You've also got the Zola reels. If you want to go around and collecting everything, like this is a good example. If you just cruise around to like the left, you'll see that there's a bunch of other environments that you can run through. There's a whole sewer system. So if you want to get all those collectibles, you're probably talking over 10, 12 hours. If you just try to burn through it, you probably get through in about 8 hours. I could probably do it in about 6 hours, but I've played it a bunch. So.
You're an especially good Captain America. Thribs is wondering, do you get to kill Hitler?
No, you don't get to kill Hitler. We specifically tried to stay away from sort of the Nazi idea.
Right.
Focus on Hydra and Red Skull. You do get to face off with Red Skull, though. He is in the game. And there's a couple other enemies that we haven't talked about either that we're just trying to keep as like secrets for the people who actually play through it. Oh. So you've made it outside the labs, through the courtyard. Now you're entering in what we call the East Ballroom, and this is where you're going to face off with Madam Hydra.
Okay.
So if we continue through, there'd be a big boss battle and quite a big finishing moment in the story.
Okay. Let's see here. Oh, all right, excellent. Well, you know, obviously we want to preserve some surprises for the viewers out
Please,
there,
yep.
so that is something that we'll definitely make sure to do. But Morgan, I appreciate you coming by.
Sean, thanks for having me.
Showing off Captain America. Go ahead and
no
remind
problem.
everybody out there when the game is going to be out in stores and the platforms it will be out
Sure,
for.
it's coming out July 19th, so just a few weeks away. It's coming out for Xbox 360, PS3, Wii, and DS.
All right, thanks a lot.
Yeah, no
appreciate
problem.
it.